Hey everybody, welcome back to Thought Crime and Keto and Crime. Today we're taking a look at an event that wasn't quite a crime, but it broke a lot of hearts. So let's talk about the pop duo Milli Vanilli.
No, it's true.
Milli Vanilli, before they were Milli Vanilli, they were Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan. Rob Pilatus was born June 8th, 1966 in Munich, Germany. He was the orphan son of an African-American GI and a German woman. He was raised in the foster care system and later on by adoptive parents, however, they were very poor. He grew up in the German equivalent of Section 8 housing. He worked fast food, but he always had a passion for dance and for photography, and it was for that reason that he wanted to pursue a career as a backup dancer, break dancer, and a model. And that led him to move to Los Angeles, California in the mid-'80s. He started pursuing modeling jobs, acting jobs, dancing jobs, whatever he could get, as well as taking breakdancing and hip-hop classes, in addition to ballet and many other things. Very talented young man, and also quite a looker. Very attractive with a European accent, so that just tends to do well here in the U.S. We love a good accent. It was while he was in Los Angeles in 1986 at a dance class that he met his future partner in crime, Fab Morvan. Fab was born May 13th, 1964 in Paris, France. He was the son of Guadeloupean immigrants to France, grew up very much poor, just like Rob, worked at McDonald's as a matter of fact, but also had a passion for dance and modeling, and also had relocated to Los Angeles to pursue that career, and it was there that they met each other. They started collabing, they started hanging out, they started dancing together, and they developed quite a reputation as street performers, as backup dancers, and they had quite a few modeling jobs. They did quite well for themselves there. However, they were really craving fame, and after a couple years in LA, they realized it really wasn't working out, so they both returned to Europe. Rob moved back to Munich, Fab back to Paris, but Fab later on did relocate to Munich, and they started collabing there in Europe as well. And it was in 1987, early 1988, when they met German music producer and co-owner of MCI, Frank Farian. Frank Farian, as I said, owned MCI Records, which was very popular in Europe, and he was a longtime music producer and band creator. Think of him as the European Maurice Starr, created New Kids on the Block, Lou Pearlman, creator of Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and O-Town, I think. Just kidding, I actually saw them in concert. Don't judge me. However, his bands had one thing in common. A lot of them were visual bands only. He had a habit of kind of looking at entertainment as a visual element rather than just the music. So a lot of his bands lip-synced, for lack of a better term. He had very good-looking frontmen, and he picked up talented musicians who recorded all their music, and he simply played a backing track over, and his visual performers danced and pretended to sing and made him lots and lots of money. Some of his biggest successes were European pop group and disco group Boney M, Latin group No Mercy. All of these bands did very well in South America and Europe. He had yet to make it in the USA with a big splash. None of his stuff was really well known there, so he was looking for an intercontinental act that could really spice it up in Europe as well as finally get him known in the United States. And he was on the lookout for people that could dance and were attractive to look at, because he already had musicians that could do kind of a rap pop element, which is what he was looking to do, in the persons of studio musicians and backing musicians Charles Shaw, John Davis, Brad Howell, Jody, and Linda Rocco. They were all immensely talented rappers and R&B vocalists, but they didn't have the look. They were older, in their mid-40s. They were relatively out of shape, dad bods. You know how it goes. Weren't really pleasing to look at. Think like CNC Music Factory and Martha Washington. For those of you that don't know, this is a phenomenon, especially for European bands. For those of you who don't know, the popular 90s dance group CNC Music Factory, they didn't really sing either. The female voice that was heard on their albums was from disco artist Martha Washington, who was part of the Weather Girls, and wasn't what the producer of that band thought people wanted to look at, so they replaced her with somebody that was thinner and in better shape, but they used her vocals. And that was kind of a really big scandal because it was one of the first ones to really break out that was happening in dance, but Milli Vanilli would become the first mainstream pop act that would have those accusations leveled against him. So he had this really great composition of singers and rappers ready to go, but they didn't look the part, so he set out a European-wide search for 2 or 3 good-looking men that could also dance. And this is when one of his co-producers brought Rob Pilatus and Fab or Fabrice Morvan to his attention. They were working as breakdancers and backup dancers, street performers in Munich, Germany. He saw a tape of what they could do. He immediately knew these were the 2 that could bring forth his vision of an intercontinental mainstream rap pop sensation. And that's what he did. He brought them into the studio. He actually let them perform. They could actually rap and sing. Neither of these guys were incapable of singing, but he felt that his studio singers were better, and he basically put them into the studio, had them all work together, worked Rob and Fab until they knew the lyrics to all these songs seamlessly, and then choreographed dance with them and started marketing them as the pop duo, Milli Vanilli. Frank Farian promised Rob and Fab they would have artistic input. He promised them that they would be able to sing. They begged him for this privilege because they really wanted to be honest performers. In their own words, they were broke, they were desperate, and this was their big chance, and they took it, and they actually allowed themselves to believe Frank's lies that they would be allowed to perform, other than just dancing and looking good. The band blew up in Europe during the summer of 1987, fall of 1988, and their first #1 hit, Girl You Know It's True, went to #1 in Germany late 1988, and it was at this time that record producers and radio executives in the United States took notice. And it was at this time that they started kind of migrating over to the USA that, again, Rob and Fab went to Frank and asked him, hey, how about your promise to let us sing? He said, it's too late now. We've blown up with this particular sound. We have to keep this particular sound. I just want you to front it and dance. I'll cover you. No one will ever find out. And later on, we'll do some work where you can have complete artistic control. But for now, I really need you just to keep your mouth shut and dance. The 2 molded over. They really weren't sure. Frank actually took $20,000 in cash out and split it between them and said, here's some hush money, basically. Keep your mouth shut, or basically you're going to end up back in Munich, dancing in the street and working at McDonald's kind of stuff. Not saying that was the exact words, but they got the drift, and they went with it. Off to the USA they go. They caught the view of MTV executives. At this time, MTV original VJs, VH1, all of these guys, all these shows and these guys were really taking off, and they took notice of Milli Vanilli, and it was those live VJ shows that really put Milli Vanilli over the top, because the song in itself was good. It's still one of my favorites. I don't care who sung it. It's one of my favorites. It was an okay song, but it was their visuals, because they were, as I said, they were quite attractive, long dreadlocks, European, very mysterious and exotic, and boys could dance. They could dance. It was the video for Girl You Know It's True that really put them over the top. It was one of the top requested of all. Album went triple diamond, triple platinum, all over Europe, all over North America, and Milli Vanilli became one of the top selling, top rated acts of 1988 and 89. They sold out concerts, they went on interview shows, they won a Grammy in 1989 for Best New Musical Group. They spent 78 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Top 100. So they were huge, and they were riding high all the time, hoping that Frank Farian would actually fulfill his promise and allow them to really sing and rap. But it wasn't to be. And Frank Farian's publicity machine was so well tailored at handling how to mitigate the fact that who was pictured in the videos and pictured on his albums and who sang the songs were different. They were able to keep this covered up for a really long time. In late 1989, during a series of live interviews on both VH1 and MTV, it became apparent to those interviewing them and to those watching that Rob and Fab didn't speak really good English, for lack of a better term. They spoke French and German respectively, but English was their second language, and it became apparent during these interviews that they did not have a good enough command of the English language to sing the way that they did, and there started to be some speculation. Frank Farian's machine was able to kind of cover that up, saying, music's different. When they sing, they're in their own little world. They can do it. It's a lot better than when they speak it, because they actually have to make you impromptu, know what they're saying, whereas when they sing, they know the lyrics, they practice the lyrics, they understand the lyrics, and they can do them much better. Okay, maybe it's possible. Anyway, that's what Farian kind of said, and for a little while it died down until July 21st, 1989, during a live performance on MTV at a party put on at Bristol, Connecticut, a theme park there. This happened.
I'm just in love, girl.
Yes, the backing track stuck. And the phrase, Girl You Know It's True, was repeated on blast about 15 times. During this time, Rob got so distraught that he stopped singing and ran off stage. Popular MTV VJ, Downtown Julie Brown, ran after him and convinced him to go back on stage, saying, "You can't let it go down like this, man. You got to go back. Show must go on." So he did. He went back on stage, rejoined Fab, and they finished the show. The ironic thing is, no one really noticed. No one really noticed at the event, because during that time, it was very, very normal in live performances for artists to use backing tracks and to have a DJ remix their sound to kind of pump up the show. Because this is off subject, but have you ever seen the movie Pure Country with George Strait? If you haven't, check it out. But he plays a country singer that gets kind of distraught that his industry is going visual rather than being about the music. And he actually stopped singing during a concert, but because of the loud music, backing music, and the light show, and everything going on, no one really realizes that he's even stopped singing. So, kind of this way, you're pumped up at a concert, got all the lights and everything going on, no one really noticed. But later on, because it was televised, people started studying it and realized, oh, they noticed. I don't think these guys can sing. And people started investigating, started really putting the pressure on Frank Farian. All of the publicity convinced one of the members of the studio band that actually recorded the lyrics, Charles Shaw, he had some moderate success as a rapper and R&B singer, to come forward and say that he was one of the voices on the album and that Rob and Fab did not sing any of it. Frank Farian, true to form, offered him $150,000 to retract his statements. which he did, but it did not stem the public criticism. In fact, it went on. It all culminated in late 1989 when the Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, Grammys, actually revoked Fab and Rob's Grammy. And they actually made a statement the day that they had to give their awards back, and one of them actually grabbed the microphone and started to sing. And this happened.
On mine, and you're the one I think about most every time. And when you crack a smile and everything you do.
Proving that the boys were actually talented. It's just that they didn't fit with the business model that Frank Farian, the creator of the band, wanted. He wanted separate vocals, separate visuals, and that was his style, and that's what he got. He basically cut them loose. Their parent company, Arista Records, basically cut them off as well. Farian withdrew most of his support, and a big headline came out. 1989, they didn't sing. As a result of this, their worth plummeted. They were kind of blacklisted as far as being a musical artist. About 20 or so lawsuits were filed against them, Frank Farian, and Arista Records, which were settled, mainly with a nominal fee and the fact that Arista Records would give people up to a $6 credit. Anybody that had bought a Milli Vanilli album was given $6 credit toward a purchase of another Arista musical artist. So basically, people sued them for fraud because what they did was fraud. And they were sued, and it was settled out of court for a $6 credit towards another purchase. Frank Farian actually went on record saying that he didn't understand what the big hoopla was about. This was standard practice in the entertainment industry, that not everyone sings. He said, look at your favorites, Janet Jackson, Madonna. These were his words, not mine. I'm not accusing any of these people of not singing. But he said, look at all your favorite artists. I guarantee you they use lip syncing and background vocals quite a lot. You just don't notice.
When they announced that Milli Vanilli were the winners at the Grammys, I was really unhappy because I could see trouble coming. And eventually they went out of control. They didn't pay any attention to me anymore. They went on tour, and I finally decided I would end their charade. So I went to New York to the press and said, these two guys have never sung a note.
As for Frank Farian, he's finally decided to come out from behind his mixing desk. Ironically, for his debut singing as himself, he's chosen to sing somebody else's song, Steely Dan's. It doesn't really make sense, but neither did Boney M. It's all part of the magic and mystery that is Frank Farian.
So it kind of boils down to, what do you believe? Do you believe these were just scapegoats for an industry practice, or there was actually a crime committed here? Anyway, anybody that had bought an album or anything got $6 credit toward the purchase of another Arista album, and lots of people that had attended concerts were refunded their money in full as part of the settlement. In the meantime, Charles Shaw and the other members of the studio band that recorded actually went on to form their own band called Milli Vanilli.
Baby, you light my fire with a love so strong. It could not be wrong. It was a new love, true love, such passion you inspire. I'm feeling so right. I just can't get you off of my mind.
You can't make this up. Didn't do so well. Rob and Fab, after kind of laying low for a little while, attempted to make a comeback. In 1993, after everything had kind of died down, the two moved back to Los Angeles. They signed with record label Joss Entertainment with Sandy Galen, a well-known musical agent, as their manager. And they recorded their own album, doing their own vocals, their own rapping, and of course their own dancing, called Rob and Fab. It was released in both the United States, Canada, and Europe. However, the album only sold 2,000 copies, and if you know anything about the entertainment industry, it's not good. In 1997, their old friend Frank Farian contacted them and offered to kind of help them produce a new album under their name, Milli Vanilli. which he still owned, that name, and produce a tour and a new album called Back and in Attack, where they do their own dancing, their own singing, their own rapping. They went back into the studio. Some of the members of Milli Vanilli, the originals that actually sang, actually came in and sang backup for them. There was a lot of push to really get these guys back into the spotlight. And for a while, it went okay until Rob started encountering a lot of personal problems. He was a recovering drug addict, and he relapsed. He ended up committing some kind of petty crimes, was sentenced to 3 months in jail. He was bailed out by Fab and Frank. But on April 11th, 1998, he was found dead from a drug overdose in a hotel room in Munich, Germany. Fab has gone on to try to make it as a solo. He's had some success. He's also still doing some modeling, some backup dancing. So he's kind of rummaging his way through the entertainment business, making a living for himself. But the dream of Milli Vanilli is long since dead. Frank Farian has gone on to retire in Florida. He's produced several other bands. Actually is still making a profit off royalties from the original Milli Vanilli tracks. In fact, if you go to right here on YouTube or BitChute or any web hosting, you can find their videos by an Arista-owned channel, still making money off those songs. And I gotta hand it to you. Music's good, the song's good, the dancing's good. I don't care who sang it. It was a good entertainment experience. They were some of my favorites when I was a teen and in my 20s. So, what do you think? Do you think this should be construed as a crime? Or were these just guys that got caught and were made scapegoats of a trick the music industry's done for years? What do you think? In any case, it was some dirty dealings, but we got some good music out of it. So, my very best to Fab Morvan. I hope he's doing all right. And condolences to the family of Rob Pilatus. Sad how that happened. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. This is a quick little one, something kind of fun to kind of cleanse our palates from all the murders and stuff we've been investigating. I'll be back later this week with more true crime. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, links are down below. Never required, always appreciated. Keto comment.